Today I will be talking about livelihood, and most of us think of this as career or income, but I'm going to stretch it a bit and talk about nourishment for the mind and for the physical uh, container. So, in other words, the vessel, the mind's life and the body's life, the spirit's life, and of course, in terms of having usefulness and contributing in the world, career and income also being like how to sustain ourselves physically and also on a psychological level, feeling some sense of security that I have skills or ideas worth value that can be transferred into money, which is value. So first of all, we're a work in process. We're always learning, and this is priceless. I mean, you have people who have been dentists for decades, and they still have to take continuing certifications, and people who have been, working in long-term careers and still have to take continuing education classes to maintain what's new and what can benefit the current paradigm of knowledge. And so there's a lot of healing and growing and expanding, and we can even look at it as a kingdom, a creatorship kingdom, what we're willing to create, what kind of stable foundations we can create, what kind of co-creating we do with others, collaboration. And so I'm going to say a lot of this turns into a formula. How much time or effort am I willing to give? And how much money do I need to live off of? And money can also mean, energy, could be help, depending on our abilities. So whatever you'd have to buy, you can also look at it as that's the thing that we're calling money here. So my mainstream education was 7 years of academic education after 13 years really of schooling, traditional 1 year of internship in the health field, 4 years of writing research review articles from data from scientific and clinical studies, having my own business of body work, having my own business of photography. This is before some of my education, actually. The body work came after. And additional education I had was I traveled to many countries and did backpacking. I had a lot of online certifications and trainings, workshops, extensive plant medicine rituals before it became trendy, psychedelics. I've read thousands of books, taken a lot of notes. I've attended hundreds of sessions and networking events and summits and retreats. And I've also worked with dozens, if not dozens of healers and teachers. And I recognize there is no one pathway, there's no one teacher to rely on. Every trigger, every person we meet is a lesson to lean into. So at first, a stable foundation in college, in the workshops I signed up for, I had some sense of control. But actually, a lot of my lessons I learned came outside. In my career, in my soul's curriculum, I have learned so much outside of these formal education pathways and outside of my relationships with specific teachers, specialties, and teachers in specialties and also specialists. So challenges, moments, interactions, beyond what meets the eye, open to all potential. These are some ways to look at life as a teacher. And we all have a personal internal guidance system. I used to love saying that, a personal internal guidance system. It's like a GPS, but you're sending out constantly this navigational beep that we cannot hear, but it's a frequency and it's sending out to the environment, and things come back that are important or significant. And this is of course happening psychologically, physiologically, emotionally, and also spiritually. And what I learned from my personal internal guidance system is that I'm a vessel and a channel. So I'm getting guidance all the time, and I have to choose to act or speak or not act or not speak based on these guiding informations coming in. So I could be going somewhere, not know how to go, but I could ask someone for direction. They could point me in the right or wrong way, and I have to know whether or not it's the right or wrong way for me. It's a personal, internal guidance system. So even looking for these teachers or these pathways brought me back to this personal guidance system. I started realizing we definitely love to bow and serve those who we decide are worthy of it, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in beauty, whether it's in smarts, whether it's in charming, whether it's because we just want them to like us in a personal way, or if it's in a group, maybe it's because they're the best, alpha, kind of in the position of getting everybody to, do what they want or what would be best for the group. And in the end, I've got to bow to everybody. I've got to serve everybody. My personal internal guidance system is able to connect with every single person individually and say, this is what I have for you. And taking each one separately is recognizing this, again, this creative kind of creatorship kingdom, that each time I'm meeting somebody or interpreting the moment or making a first impression on them or receiving a first impression from them, this is information that I can feel their soul and they can feel my soul. And we don't always talk about it, or we forget, absent-minded. Our mind forgets, and then a lot of us, we say, well, I have trouble focusing, and so I'm not good at it. And then that's not even remembered as something, well, if you have trouble focusing, then work on focusing. You got to spend some time focusing. It doesn't matter what you're focusing on. Just need to spend time focusing on something. So what is something that brings strength and light? And for me, this was that people can create their momentum through me, and I can create my momentum through others because of the power of creation. So I started recognizing that it was uncomfortable for me when people would blame and accuse me of stuff I didn't do or stuff I couldn't even affect for them, because it made me feel I was too powerful. And it didn't sit right with me. The soul level didn't sit right with me that I am able to create their happiness. It's not true. So in this kingdom I have, and if I have subjects who want me to be their king or queen, but they're not willing to also be the king or queen of their life, I have to create their momentum. I have to give them back their power. And this is a very difficult work for me because it is without thanks, it's without credit. It's definitely giving people their own self. And many times people don't like their self or want to be with their self. So it's a two-way street. I've been on both sides of this. And it's a sacred spiritual energy, this light, love, truth that I'm calling power. And this light of being able to be the thing what the person thinks is unlovable, and me saying, I see you as that, and also you're lovable because I just am allowing you to get attention for who you are. It's very triggering. And, we are not required to suffer or be in lack. So if something is feeling like suffering, it's usually the resistance. If it feels like lack, it's usually a lack of creative ability. So creative ability. So creating ability. Where can I create more comfort and safety for myself right now? And that's where the focus comes in. Every time we find ourselves in this moment is a chance to focus on where, not like in denial, like everything's fine, it's all God, it's consciousness, it's, nobody makes mistakes, it's all perfect. Rather, I feel lack. So where can I bring energy of abundance into this area? So for example, I burnt the food. And you know what I realized? It was like giving an offering, the way I grew up with the Torah, how they used to burn some flour or meal offering, like cornmeal, oatmeal. And I thought maybe that was my sacrifice. And also I didn't have enough money to buy something. And I realized yesterday somebody asked, like cash, and somebody asked me to go to the store for them to get it. And I said, no, I didn't have time. So I realized like these moments, it's like, oh, wow, I already got that karma out of the way. I see what it feels like to not have it and how for a moment they felt insecure. And also like burning the food, I see how it feels like for those people they had to give up their food. So it's actually, wow, what a blessing, this temporary moment I can learn about the experience of what it means to be human, expanding the spectrum of experience in accordance with what I already know and what's still happening. And we can be art that holds energy. So there's an art to living, there's grace, there is a dance to life, a ballet, there's a up and down, and tense and loose, and contract and expand. And it's like, can we really maintain? Can I be overwhelmed and still be beautiful? Like feel like a hot potato that just got splattered all over the floor and there's pieces and chunks everywhere, and yet say, wow, that looks beautiful, that looks like art. And it's a lifestyle practice, and it's not easy, but it does give us the ability to recover from all our perceptions, because I can be allowing the grace of every moment being new to give me that innocence and freedom that this is not who I am. This is what I see in this moment. And some of my experiences are so priceless because it's like I had periods of time. I'm gonna run through a few areas where, I I really struggled. And I'm going to say this is part of me. At that time it felt real. It was what I knew. It was all I could really see. And yet it's not who I am. So some of these are, I had physical issues I had almost died from. This was angioedema and lymphoma symptoms for a long time. I recover mostly through spiritual and emotional healing at this time, but I did try many different, I got injections, and I got scans, and I got biopsies, and in my neck, and it was, and in more vulnerable places inside of me, and it was a horrible experience. And then, it looked like maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis, and I became more fearful and lonely and isolating. I didn't think anyone could understand me. I didn't feel like I mattered. Self-abandonment, and this brought out my PTSD. The fact that I had to stay so frozen growing up, and I didn't learn my voice, how to communicate. I felt a lack of connection. I was engaged with addiction. I was feeling connected to substances, which numbed me and relieved me. I thought, I was depressing my vitality. I felt like I was unworthy of life. I felt ashamed just to be who I was. I thought, I couldn't really trust anyone's intentions. I was always sort of lashing out because I thought that, everything the person was saying was sort of to undermine me or devalue me. And I wasn't even conscious of the fact that I was seeing these narratives. And a lot of risky and harmful acts because I just didn't value my life. I didn't value the present moment. I didn't value the relationships. I didn't value much at all. I wanted to be invisible. I felt like on display. I felt like my privacy was violated, even with people just looking at me. I felt a meaninglessness and an emptiness to life, a purposelessness. I had very low confidence. I was making money. I was, busy, and I had events, but I really didn't feel that I was the one doing it. And there was a big void that I was trying to escape from inside of myself, and a sense of inherent guilt that I was irredeemable, and if anybody really could see underneath, I was really, there was just a defect that everybody could see. And there was chronic mourning, really. There was just a sense always of like grief and loss. I can't have this. And speaking of money earlier, it's like as items become more expensive, it was just another way I would feel grief. I can't afford this, or, I have to give up, my status here or there. I even had small crimes. Like I was doing crimes, but both peer pressure and influence from others, but also like just doing things that are against the law. And substance abuse, like I said, addictions were process addictions, but also substance abuse. Sexually, I was very, very disappointed with myself and always trying to perform and wanting to feel desirable through somebody else, and then really, really becoming like objectified, wanting to just be an object for pleasure rather than realizing how precious that sexual energy was, part of creative energy. And eventually, my spiritual and emotional healing brought me to a place that shows me there's always a way out of every moment. My tendency was that there's no way out, I'm not protected, there's no guidance, I'm just abandoned, forsaken, I don't matter. And I started recognizing there is always a way out. I'm always protected and guided. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel that started living with me. Even though the light wasn't there, I started recognizing there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I started taking some control over my belief system. And this is my livelihood. The belief system is our livelihood. The belief system is our curriculum or career. And I realized I was always given tools and beliefs. These beliefs were there, and I was always given the tools, the belief system tools, and investors, empowerers, sharers. I was able to bring in those who were highly sensitive and who could care about me and see the light at the end of the tunnel, even though I was in a messy place. They could see the art in the splatter baked potato. And the truth is, nobody rescued me. And I wanted to be rescued at times, like by a parent, or somebody could fill in for a parent, when I just felt so low. I wish there was somebody who would come in and just save me. But I had to find presence in a sustainable way, the raw power of awareness. I had to really see myself, and I had to see what was flowing in me when I was ready to receive it. And it was overwhelming. There was times where it was just too much light, too much power. Suddenly I was responsible for everything, and I didn't know where I ended and where others began. And this is part of the journey, and it meant getting to know myself, getting to know others, versus how it had been. I was aimlessly wandering, looking to know myself, which I wasn't connected to. I didn't have the right role models. So finally, instead of just wanting to be known, I now feel like I'm curious. I'm able to, instead of feeling so desperately, unseen, and yet also wanting to be invisible in this, horrible, being inside and out of my skin all at once, there started to be a sense of being the knower of myself, of my body, of my flaws, of my fears, of my perceptions, being the knower, being the observer, not needing to know, but being the one learning and constantly learning on my career. So even as I get good and become mastery prone in some areas, there's still a sense of always learning, always growing. And this is the livelihood and the career of the self. And I want to give an example of some spiritual and emotional healing ways. So one is spiritual healing, is I started to recognize there are letters. It's officially 22 letters, but there's also, some have a double. So there's 27 letters by way of judgment. Now, the letters taught me something big when I learned about the Hebrew letters. There's 22 Hebrew letters. They are black letters or white letters, depending on how you see it. The white letters show a negative space. The outline of the letter shows what's inside, and the inside of the letter shows is another way to look at it. So there's white fire or black fire, or white letters and black letters, and it uses the element of separation. And that taught me deeply, I am living it, still learning, that the inside of the letter teaches me what is there, but also the absence, like cutting out the letter and then there being a space, also teaches me what was there, what could be there. And I started interacting with life when I learned that we're made up of this kind of energy of letters of separation. So this sense of pockets of a void in a positive soup of energy. Pocket would be taken out, and the outline of it was me or someone else. And letting it be, for this moment, letting it be a thought experiment that each one of us is a cutout letter. So you can't see me. You see what you fill into the space. But I'm there as that empty letter which can take in anything that fits this shape. So starting to see the world that way, but also starting to see the world the other way, where I was the letter, so everything that I saw would be matching my shape. I would see the world and interact with the world, and I realized we can use different letters, or we can use different shapes, postures we take in the world, and thought postures that we take in the world. And I started having to clear the negative field. In other words, the negative field is not negative like bad, but like I said, separation, we call it gevura in Hebrew. It's greatness, but it's also, in a more fundamental way, it's judgment. It's strong. It's the strength to have separation, is not to just become all mixed up with it. So the negative field is like the edge. So the edge of my skin has a negative field. And actually we know this scientifically, that every cell in our body has a battery polarity with inside and outside of the cell. So the soup of the cell is charged differently than the skin of the cell, so that everything could stay separate. So we have separate cells. So there's this energy of division, which became holy to me. And this initially just gave me tremendous healing, that I'm not supposed to become anything else, that I have to become who I am, the letters that make me who I am. And this includes the body skin, but also the spiritual skin. And I started realizing this allows, like the cells have special gates where things can come in and go out. And it's done that way in the most beautiful, creative, the king of the world would do that. There's nobody that any of us who could develop, the level of strength to only take in at exactly the right times. Most of us are learning how to get over indulgence and temptation and judgment and impulsivity. And so, in other words, learning this gave me a sense of that there's something out there that could always be the higher power that could teach me about only having exactly what I need. Each cell is a unit, each mini sun, because it radiates the positive energy. It allows for a particle. The positive light, the negative field allows for the positive field. So in other words, I realized it took the king of the world to make enough space for me, who would be taking too much at times. So this higher knowledge of knowing I might be greedy and challenged and tempted and desiring, and yet took away enough space that I could live as a positive cell, as a mini sun in the soup of the sun. And in this field of positive light, of energy and radiance that infinitely projects, immediately surrounding us, needs to be fed constantly. So this negative field, in other words, let me clarify, there's a positive field in that positive field, by the mercy of the Creator, there's a small space that becomes negative. In there could be implanted a tiny little speck that could radiate out, but it won't merge and lose its existence with the all positive field because it has a negative polarity edge so that it could exist. And all of this energy infinitely projects. This, by nature, this is infinitely projecting expansive, positive light like the sun, which is radiating out, and the whole world is sustained through the sunlight, and the one who makes the sun. And this immediately surrounding negative field needs to keep being fed, or it could close in. So in order to keep expanding, we need to nurture, nourish, and sustain ourselves in order to exist. So I started getting this emotional healing, and I recognized these emotions, energy passing through, are actually sustaining me. They're giving me existence. It's life. It's life existing through me in the form of an emotion and giving me an experience of existing as separate. Grief means I lost it. I don't have it anymore. But this energy might feel like grief, but it's going to sustain me to be me in the world. I'm going to know about myself. I'm going to connect with myself. I'm going to expand as a self. And it's like an inside-out glove. So this separate vessel with the positive and the negative, it kind of also, I spoke about the letters. It also is like in the tablets that Moses brought down, they were electromagnetically floating letters put in place in the same idea. So it's a good way to imagine is, let's say a letter O in English, there's a hole in it. But the letter O in this tablet, which had a hole outside of it and a hole inside of it, was the hole inside of the O was floating. It didn't need to make contact. So this is a way to think of that force that goes out in all directions, keeps it in place. And that's kind of this circular, or whatever shape you want to imagine any letter. The outline of it is producing energy to come inward, to collapse inward. The positive force outside is very, very big and strong. It's a gavura, the separation energy. It's very strong. Gavura also means strength, so it's a very strong energy that could collapse us. So every time we get even stressors and we're at the threshold of difficulty, those are expansive moments. These energies are coming to expand the vessel, to be able to contain the energy, to be able to push back and exist, but not with short-term short-circuiting, not with like, otherwise we would be nullified by the outer, which is often incomparable force to our force, if we didn't have these temptations, which when we resist them, we push back. So resisting the negative, which wants to collapse us. We want all this energy. We want all this relief. We want it all to be fine again. We want to just be in a positive field. But becoming one with this negative field and pushing and resisting the urges allows us to expand and become one with the positive field without nullifying the negative field and without nullifying the self. And it allows us to exist in co-creatorship with the kingdom. And this allows for contracted, digestible inputs, which is what livelihood is. It's when we get in some money and we spend it, and then we get in some money and we spend it. We could save it, but then it's just sort of like a contracted small ball. We also need to release. So we have to give back, we have to receive, but this energy of separation is really what is an example of the healing, the growing, and the expanding of spiritual and emotional work. And I wish you a beautiful day, and feeling the abundance, feeling the positive field, and in career and livelihood and all other areas of well-being and health.